Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my channel, Vedic Living. Today, we'll be talking about the movement of the nodes backwards one sign. The nodes always move backwards in the sky as opposed to the other planets. So we are going to talk about the transit of Rahu and Ketu into Pisces and Virgo and what this means for everybody. I'll be doing sign-by-sign predictions at the end of this video, which will give you an idea as to what this means for you as per your chart. Now, before we go further, if you don't know what your chart looks like, or you have some curiosity as to where the nodes are in your chart, you can always go to my website, www.vedic-living.com, and use the free chart calculator and use it to see where the nodes are in your chart. And this way, you know which sign, when I talk about which sign, that applies to you. All right, so let's talk about what the nodes are doing right now in the sky. So before we go to what the transit of the nodes are right now, let's talk a little bit about the mythology behind the nodes. As per Hindu mythology, the story of the nodes Rahu and Ketu goes back to a time when a very pivotal event happened. And this was Samudra Manthan. Now, what that loosely translates to is the churning of the oceans. Now, you know how much I love my mythology, and I like to look at the psychology behind it to see what that means and what the story was meant to convey. But I'll go into the psychology part later. First, let's talk about the mythology. So, as per the story that is written in the Puranas, the Samudra Manthan happened where the ocean had to be churned to yield certain celestial items. Now, such a large-scale churning requires a big churning rod, and the mountain Mandara was, decided that because of the unique shape of the mountain Mandara, that would be used as the churning rod. And now, what rope would you use to churn a mountain? You can't use a regular rope. So then it was suggested to use the king of the serpents, Vasuki, as the churning rope. So with this humongous setup, the churning started happening. And as the churning went on, and of course, before I go into what the churning yielded, we have to also talk about who was pulling the rope on either side, or the serpent on either side. The celestial beings, or the devas, were on one side, so the good forces, and demons were on the other side, the asuras. So with this being said, they started churning the ocean. Now, the promise that was made to both the devas and the asuras was that at the end of the churning, when the amrit, or the nectar of immortality, came out of the ocean, then whoever was churning the ocean, they would all get an equal share of this amrit. That was a promise that was made. So the churning started, and one by one, very celestial, very holy objects started coming out of the ocean. One among this was goddess Lakshmi, who's the consort of Lord Vishnu, and she's considered the goddess of all wealth and prosperity. Then there was then Chandra, the moon god, came out of the churning. I'll tell you the story about how the moon had disappeared before the churning. So now during the churning, the moon god appeared again. Then there was Parijata, which was a beautiful, fragrant tree, a celestial tree that came out. And there was Airavata, which was the four-tusked elephant, which ended up being the ride of Lord Indra. And hence, there were a lot of, celestial things that came. Kamadhenu, the cow that gives you all the nourishment that you can ever imagine. So that was another item that came. So a lot of celestial, holy, divine objects came out of this churning. At the end of the churning came out the pot of Amrit, which is considered the nectar of immortality and knowledge. So, of course, everybody started rejoicing because that was what was promised to everybody at the end of the churning. So, of course, Lord Vishnu said, okay, the devas sit on one side in a straight line and the asuras sit on the other side, and the amrit was going to be divided. But they all started fighting, right? Because everybody wants the first sip of the amrit because they are worried by the time it gets to them, it might be over. So the devas and asuras, engaged in this huge war, saying, they want to be the first ones to take a sip out of the amrit. So Lord Vishnu's avatara, the Mohini avatara, had to happen at that time, where he transformed himself into a beautiful damsel, a beautiful dancer. And he, of course, everybody is, entranced by the beauty of Mohini. And they listen to her, right? So she says, okay, you sit on one side, the devas sit on one side, the asuras sit on the other side. And she says, I'll make sure everybody gets some amrit. You have to trust me. So they decide to listen to her. So she starts going down the line of the devas, giving the amrit to each person. Now on the asura side, one of the asuras' name was Swarbhanu. Now Swarbhanu was very smart. He realized that by the time the devas are given the amrit, there's not going to be any left. So what he decided is he, changed his form into the devas, into a celestial being. And he switched sides from the asuras to the devas. And he sat right in between the sun god and the moon god, hoping he won't be recognized. So, of course, Mohini, Lord Vishnu in the form of Mohini is giving the amrit to everybody down the line. And as he comes closer to the sun god, the sun and the moon, Surya and Chandra, they realize that this person sitting in between them is an imposter. So they, this is an asur. He's not supposed to be here, and he's in the form of a deva. And they start screaming that this is, not right. This is unfair. So because they outed him, he, of course, returns back to the shape of the demon, Swarbhanu. And by the time, they were able to say that he's a demon, he had already taken some amrit in his hand and sipped a little bit of it. Now, because that amrit was in the throat area, Lord Vishnu decides that the best way to, avoid that amrit from going inside him, because of course you don't want the demons to be immortal, right? Because then you can never destroy them when they do all the bad things. So Lord Vishnu takes out his Sudarshana chakra, or the holy discus, and cuts his head off, cuts Swarbhanu's head off before he can swallow the amrit and get it to his body. Now, right before his head was cut off, a drop of the amrit went into his stomach. So now the head is immortal, the body is immortal. Okay. And the disc, the Sudarshana disc, cut off his head. So now we have the head part and the body part, and both are immortal. The head part is Rahu, the body part is called Ketu, without the head. And that's the two sides. Now, this is apparently the reason why Rahu and Ketu do not like the sun and moon. They, when the eclipse happens, that was one of the things that the Rahu and Ketu were promised. As a revenge, they're able to swallow the sun and the moon. That was the story of the eclipse. And if you think about astronomy, they are not actually planets. They are points in space. Rahu is the ascending point where the moon's orbit around the earth intersects the earth's orbit around the sun. So that point is called Rahu. And the descending point on the other side is Ketu. So these are 2 points in space which have enormously concentrated energy. So they are very important in a person's chart. But as per the mythology, because the sun and the moon, whenever you have the luminaries, the sun and the moon, sitting with Rahu and Ketu, that is a very tough life. Okay, especially people who are born around the eclipse, they always have that, because the sun will be with one of the nodes and the moon will be with the other node. And, there's going to be a very extreme and kind of like a intense life that they have. But even otherwise, if one of the luminaries, if the moon is with the Rahu or the Ketu, or the sun is with the Rahu or the Ketu, the same thing can happen. They can have a very intense and difficult life based on where these nodes are placed in their chart. Now, psychologically, the Rahu is basically the head without the body. So it can consume as much as it wants, but it will never feel satisfied because the body is not there, right? It's just consuming. So Rahu is considered the expansive, magnified version of things. So wherever Rahu is sitting with whichever planet, that part is out of control, like it's too much, right? And because it doesn't know when to stop, because it's always consuming, right? Imagine the head without the body. Now, the Ketu side can be the opposite. It doesn't want anything, right? Because it's like, I'm fine where I am, but then it's the other extreme of it, where it's complete detachment, right? So where Ketu sits is where we feel detached from that area. So people get confused because, for example, if Ketu is sitting in your 10th house of career, people think, oh my gosh, that means I will never have a job. Actually, it's the contrary. If Ketu is sitting in the 10th house, that means that you will always try to change your job. So you'll always try to look for another job because there is this vacuum there. It's not enough, right? You're always trying to fill this hole, this body, and the brain is not there. There's no head to tell it when to stop. So there is this kind of vacuum there. So it becomes an intense experience. So with the Ketu, wherever it's sitting in the chart, with whichever planet it's sitting, that area becomes this kind of vacuum that you're constantly trying to fill, and it never gets satisfied. And the Rahu area is over magnified, overcompensating everything. It's like too much, right? That's why Rahu can cause addictions, and it's also considered the reason for cancer, because it's just this uncontrolled kind of thing, right? So with the two nodes, they have a very karmic meaning in a person's chart. Wherever Ketu is sitting is what we have accomplished and learned and completed learning in past lifetimes, right? That's the area where we fall back on when things get tough in this world. And Rahu always goes opposite to Ketu. So where Rahu sits is what we are here to accomplish in this lifetime, what we want to do in this lifetime, what we want to experience. And that's the tough area for the soul, because the soul has never done that area before. So it's always trying to kind of, understand that area. But where Ketu is where it's comfortable. So we are always oscillating back and forth psychologically between the two nodes. Life constantly pushes us towards the Rahu because that's what we are here to learn. But then when that gets tough, because our soul has no idea how that area works, we pull back to the Ketu, we fall back. So this is why when, for example, if I give you an example, Rahu in the 4th house and Ketu in the 10th house, the soul doesn't know how the home works, how to be at home, how to be comfortable at home, how to understand their home kind of area. But, life will constantly push them in that direction to kind of be in that area, right? To understand that more, because that's what the soul is here to learn. But it understands the career side, the Ketu side. So when they are not able to be happy at home, they kind of go back to work. They're like, oh, I'm comfortable here. But then you can't really settle down at work, right? Because Rahu is sitting in the 4th house. So it pushes you back into the 4th house. So our entire life is this pendulum that goes back and forth. So I tell my clients all the time, the trick is not to go to one or the other. The trick is to find that midpoint, that balance, that fulcrum where the seesaw is kind of stable, right? Where you can have one and the other, and where you're keeping both of them happy, and where you're finding that stability between the nodes. That's the trick. So going back to my example, Rahu and Ketu in the 4th and 10th axis, the stability is finding work-life balance. You can't be constantly a workaholic, neither can you constantly be at home. How do you balance out the two? So that's what the question you need to ask yourself when you know where the nodes are in your chart. Ask yourself that question. Are you having a problem with those two areas? Because that's your karmic lesson in this lifetime. How do you balance the two? And how do you do the best with the two? Okay. So now with the mythology and the psychology out of the way, let's talk about what's going on in the sky right now. the nodes, they shift a sign every 18 months. Once every 18 months, they shift to a different sign. And wherever they are sitting is what the next 18-month period's trend is going to be for us, okay? So with the nodes currently, because they're shifting, Rahu is going into Pisces from Aries, Ketu is going into Virgo from Libra. They always move backwards. That means certain thing for the world. And then I'll come to the sign-by-sign prediction. Rahu in Pisces is mainly indicative of spirituality, because Rahu is that magnified energy. It brings in a spiritual kind of need in the sign of Pisces, because Pisces is a water sign. It's the 12th house. It's moksha. It's spirituality. So Rahu brings an intense need to explore that. There's going to be this collective mass consciousness that awakens in the next 18 months, collective intuition. People are going to show more interest in areas of meditation and yoga and all kinds of, spiritual matters, metaphysical matters. Now, because Pisces is associated with the 12th house, it is the mass consciousness. It's everybody in the planet. So with Rahu being there, we'll all feel more connected to each other. Like, when you think about something, you think about, let me just give you a very simple example. You think about something in your mind and you turn the TV on and that's exactly what shows up. It's kind of like this intuitive thing. Your psychic intuition is like really off the charts. And that's Rahu in Pisces. Another thing with Pisces is it is a water sign. It's considered the deep, dark waters. So with Rahu going into Pisces, expect to see a lot of illusion and chaos in the next 18 months, because it's the uncontrolled sea, right? It's the waves. It's, dealing with matters of misinformation and illusion is going to be the trend in the next 18 months. And you will also see a lot of improvement in healthcare, because Ketu will be in the 6th house. I'll talk about that. But at the same time, there's going to be a lot of like conspiracy theories and misinformation and, Maya and illusion all around you, because that's Rahu in Pisces. There's going to be a lot of creativity too. You will see movies come out which are very inspirational, very imaginative. Pisces is a very imaginative sign, in the movies and the visual arts and music and all kinds of creative fields. You will see huge improvements, things coming out that are very out of the norm. Inventiveness, imagination is, off the charts. Last time when Rahu was in Pisces was when the first privately funded spacecraft was created. So people are really imaginative. They are very creative. They have this high ingenuity during this time, because Pisces is the sign for all that, and Rahu magnifies it out of control. Now, expect in the next 18 months, as Rahu goes through Pisces, that there is going to be a lot of storms and hurricanes and things that have to do with water, floods and those kind of things, because Pisces is the deep, dark waters. Rahu is transiting it, which is over the top, a lot of it, right? Too much. Last time Rahu was in Pisces, there was Hurricane Katrina, which was one of the biggest events in the US. And if you look back to that time frame, 2004 to 2006, but that is like on the physical side, right? Like in the weather and all that. But psychologically, people feel a little out of control when Rahu is in Pisces, because like I said, it's the water. So there's like this emotions that run out of control. There's anger, there's frustration, there's, even if it's on the other side, on the positive side, the joy, the hope and happiness, it's always this big swings, right? Spikes, out of control kind of emotions. And I believe in Mumbai, there were the train bombings, the suicide bombings around the time when Rahu was in Pisces last time. So you will see, events that have to do with inventiveness and ingenuity on the positive side, but on the negative side, you will see out of control emotions all around the world. Now, what does Ketu and what really differentiates between those two is how high do you want your consciousness to be lifted? We can always choose the dark or the light. And Rahu in Pisces is amazing for healing and compassion too. Pisces is the sign of compassion and wanting to help others and wanting to bring humanity together. So there's those two sides that are always grappling for power, right? Think about the Samudra Manthan story. It's the Devas and the Asuras. You know, the Devas have good intentions, the Asuras have evil intentions, and they are churning the ocean of consciousness for things to come out from within. What does that mean? That means you are meditating, you're connecting to yourself. What is churning of the ocean? You're churning your consciousness. You're churning all that fake illusion that is out there that is being constantly bombarded on your mind, but you're churning your internal consciousness to get those pearls, right? What are the things that come out? Wealth, prosperity. That's the goddess Lakshmi. Then the nourishment, the cow, Kamadhenu. Each of those items that came out, and immortality, right? That's health. That's your health. So where are these items coming out from? They're coming from the churning of that consciousness from within. So Rahu in Pisces is an amazing time to learn these things like meditation or any kind of activity that you can do to really connect to yourself and understand who you are and what you want to be and bring that truth from within. That's the meaning of the Samudra Manthan. And that's why, you know, Rahu in Pisces is very strong for that. But like I said, there's always a higher meaning and a lower meaning. On the lower meaning side, you have all that anger and the violence and the wars and the instability. But the higher one, if we tap into the higher one, that brings us the peace and the calm from within. Don't look for it outside in the world. Find it within yourself. And then when you find it within yourself and others do the same, you're raising the mass consciousness. Okay, so what you want to see out there, find it within you first. And that's the way to go. That's the meaning of that story of Samudra Manthan. Okay. Now, what does Ketu mean in Virgo? Ketu in Virgo, see, Virgo is the sign of health and healing. You're going to see a lot of advancement in that area in the next 18 months. There's going to be all kinds of things that come out from ancient wisdom. Ketu is past. Okay, so any kind of healing or healing modalities that come from ancient wisdom is going to come out, like Ayurveda or, you know, the Chinese medicine or acupuncture or, you know, all of those kind of ancient things which were forgotten. Those things are going to come out. Ketu in Virgo is one of the main times when healthcare challenges happen. And those are the issues that will then give rise to public health advancements and, you know, inventions in that area. Virgo is a sign for self-reflection. A lot of times on the lower end of that spectrum, the lower end of that meaning, it can be a lot of self-criticism. But usually people with Virgo, very strong in their chart, they are very precision-oriented, perfectionists, okay? So this is a great time where, you know, you will see that people are looking for a deeper understanding of themselves. They want to explore mindfulness and meditation, just like Rahu in Pisces. And there will be a lot of understanding about economy, finances. People will be a little bit more careful in the way they spend, because Ketu in Pisces can make you very prudent in your decisions. And again, you know, they will learn a lot about finances too. Now, environmental awareness and conservatism will be on the high at this time. You'll see a lot of groups and, you know, organizations come out which will talk about making the environment a better place, how to preserve our environments and all those kind of things. So that's definitely going to be there. Overall, in the world, you will see challenges in communication. Pisces, you know, whenever there is Ketu in Pisces, there's going to be a time when people don't want to understand others, or they don't understand. Maybe there's a confusion there. There's always misunderstanding and challenges in communication when this happens. So that's going to anyway be there in this next 18-month period. Now let's look at the sign by sign predictions. for what this means for each sign. So let's talk about if you are a Lagna, Aries Lagna, if your Lagna or your moon is in Aries, okay, so then that puts Rahu in the 12th house and Ketu in the 6th house. So what does that mean? The 6-12 axis has to do with health, primarily, your routine, your daily day-to-day life, your workplace, your problems at the workplace too. It deals with enemies, people who kind of talk behind your back, 6th house is open enemies, 12th house is hidden enemies, problems with law, legal things. And, with Rahu in the 12th house, your dreams are going to be very vivid. 12th house is your unconscious mind. You're going to have very vivid dreams, very heightened sense of, psychic qualities and intuition. And you will also focus on spiritual growth and discovery, self-discovery a lot, because that's Rahu in Pisces and in the 12th house. And then Ketu in the 6th house means that you are really going to be focused on your health matters at this time. You will be focusing on your work, on how you're balancing your health and your work. You may face some obstacles at work because Ketu in the 6th brings learnings from the past lifetime into the 6th house of co-workers and conflicts. And that's one thing that you'll have to deal with. But you'll be totally focused on building a healthy lifestyle. You may change your diet, you may change your exercise. You will be really building that resilience within you to build your life, to build your work and your home life. So that's what happens when the nodes come in the 6th and 12th axis. Now, if you're a Taurus Lagna or Taurus moon, that puts Rahu in the 11th house and Ketu in the 5th house. Now, what does that mean? The 11th house is your aspirations, your dreams, your network circles, your connections, your social kind of groups that you hang out in. And with this being said, the Rahu's position there will increase your connections to the outside world. You will see, you will be part of bigger and larger groups. You will make powerful connections. Rahu is power. Okay, you may meet very powerful people who are in high places in society. New opportunities will come to you. Your dreams and aspirations will be on an all-time high. If you have been in the same job for a long time, now you're thinking, I want to do something better. Rahu in the 11th house. And this is also a very good placement. If, you have Jupiter or something sitting in Pisces, this is a great placement for growth in terms of your dreams, right? Your aspirations, what you want to achieve in this lifetime. Rahu is very good there in the 11th house. Ketu in the 5th house, on the other hand, it relates to creativity, children, and your love life. Now, with Ketu being in the 5th house, you may be very detached from that area because all your energy is going to that 11th house of friends and social circles and parties and, trying to connect and network with everybody and all of that. So then that means that Ketu in the 5th house will take you away from home. So a lot of times what you'll see with Ketu in the 5th house is maybe the children are ready to go to college, or your kids are busy doing something else and you're not seeing them as much. Your creativity, again, will come from your intuition. Ketu sitting there brings past life knowledge there. So you will be having new hobbies that you create. And also, there will be a detachment from fun and leisure because you'll be so busy trying to work. So that's definitely going to be the case with Ketu in the 5th house. Now, if you're a Gemini ascendant or a Gemini moon, then that means Rahu is in the 10th house and Ketu is in the 4th house. This is a very good combination for career success. Rahu in the 10th house brings an increase or kind of like that step up, right, in your public image. People recognize you, who you are. Rahu magnifies the 10th house of career. You're going to look for more things to do. You want to add more things to your plate. It does bring stress. Rahu can magnify things, like I say. So when you kind of overload your plate of things to do, it can bring stress. But at the same time, it brings recognition, career gains, and it'll also boost your professional life, absolutely. Now, along with this, there'll be leadership opportunities, especially if Sun is aspecting this Rahu, or Sun is sitting in Pisces and Rahu is aspecting it, then there's going to be leadership opportunities for you. You're going to be very busy with work. Rahu in the 10th house is workaholism, really addicted to work because there's so much going on there. Ketu in the 4th house, again, Ketu is the opposite of Rahu, it's detachment. Because you're so busy at work and such, you may be pulled away from home. You may feel detached from home. You may feel like you're not able to do as much as you want at home. And, there may be changes in your domestic front. If you were working from home all this time, this can mean that you're going back to work, to your workplace. And another thing I tell people when I see Rahu in the 10th and Ketu in the 4th transiting, I tell them to watch their work-life balance in the next 18 months, because there's going to be that constant tug of war, between work and home, and that can cause stress. So, consciously try to make decisions where you can do justice to both. That's very important. Now, if you're a Cancer Lagna or a Cancer moon, that means Rahu will be in your 9th house and Ketu will be in your 3rd house. So this is the axis for learning and traveling and teaching. So 9th house is higher learning and spirituality. Cancer, people who are Cancer Lagna or Cancer moon, they will all of a sudden want to learn something new. They'll pick up something new that they want to learn in the next 18 months, right? And this is going to be something that may not be connected to what they work for or what they have been doing so far. This may be completely new, because remember, Pisces is the sign of intuition and creativity. So you are going to be this, you're going to suddenly pick up something very creative that you want to learn. And there's going to be a lot of traveling. 9th house is long distance travel. And you may be suddenly asked to teach somebody or train somebody, maybe at work or something, where you may be asked to step up and do some training, because that's a 9th house. It's a house of teaching. Ketu in the 3rd house, it's going to bring a little bit of an issue with communications, because when Ketu comes in the 3rd house, especially for Cancer ascendants, like I said, you will find it hard to express your opinion. So what happens is people tend to misunderstand what you're saying. So this is very important to remember, especially when you're talking to 3rd house kind of people who are co-workers or siblings or cousins, or people who you are at the same level with. Just be careful of your communication and what you're trying to say, because it can be misconstrued in some areas. There's going to be short trips and travel plans with Ketu in the 3rd house. Now, if you're a Leo ascendant or a Leo moon, then Rahu goes into the 8th house and Ketu goes into the 2nd house, which means that the focus is going to be on your subconscious growth and on your financial well-being. With Ketu in the 2nd house, you will be more focused on your finances, which means people misunderstand this. They think they're not going to have money. That's not true, actually. It's the opposite. Ketu in the 2nd house makes you want to create more wealth, because it brings in security. So then you're constantly looking at, how can I create more wealth? You're looking at where to invest, how to get a higher pay, or which revenue streams can you create now? Because it brings that Ketu there, which is that vacuum, like I said, which you're trying to put into, and it's never satisfied, which makes you wealthy. Actually, people misunderstand that. Ketu in the 2nd can make you very wealthy, because your focus is there. You're really focused on that area. Rahu in the 8th house brings wealth from other people, which means your spouse may be making more money. And at the same time, the subconscious mind is very active with Rahu in the 8th. You're very connected to yourself. And also, you have this heightened interest in mysteries and conspiracies and all kinds of things that are beyond what we learn in the current world, right? Beyond that. And another thing is also that, if you have Rahu in the 8th house, you are looking at a life which is very transformational in its essence. There's going to be all these intense experiences in your life which will end up bringing great transformation to you. So the next 18 months are going to be very life-changing, okay, for everybody with Rahu in the 8th house. So that's another big thing. But there's always this focus with the nodes being in the second and eighth. There'll always be a focus on money and finances, which is good because people with the nodes in the second and the eighth house will become very wealthy because of that. Okay. Now, if you are a Virgo ascendant or a Virgo moon, that puts Rahu in the seventh house and Ketu in the first house. So this is a time where there is a search for your self-identity, who you are, who you want to be, what is your personal gains and goals in this lifetime. You're going to try and adapt to the changes around you. At the same time, you want to find your own sense of name and identity. And Rahu in the seventh house means that partnerships and relationships become very important for you. You're going to embrace new partnerships. You're going to embrace new relationships, collaborate with people, communicate very openly with everybody. That's the seventh house. And if you're not married, this means that you could be meeting somebody new. If you are married, it means that you're working more closely with your spouse, maybe creating a new business together or something. Because Rahu is this extreme energy in the seventh house of partnerships and relationships, and Ketu is in the first house of self-identity. So that's the tug of war. If you're constantly creating these collaborations and partnerships with others, you have to remember not to lose the sense of yourself. Don't lose yourself in those partnerships because that's Ketu in the first house. It's constantly going to remind you to find your sense of identity in these connections. That's going to be that friction in the next 18 months. But once you learn how to do it, it's this great life lesson where you can make the best out of collaborations at the same time, not losing your own identity and who you are. Now, if you're a Libra ascendant, Rahu is in your sixth house and Ketu in your 12th house. Almost like Aries ascendant, but switched. Okay. Rahu being in your sixth house means that you are extremely focused on your health and daily routine. You know, if in the past you have been a little careless in that area, now the focus will completely be there. You are going to be focusing on your well-being, on your daily routines, on your mental on your mental state. You want to make things better. You realize that, you know what, this is a turning point in my life. I need to make sure that I'm taking care of myself. That's the thought process you're going to have. You're going to look at a lot of charities and volunteering. You want to help others. And personal growth and satisfaction is the most important thing at this time for Libra ascendants because Rahu is in the sixth house. I have to tell you, those sixth house rules work. Rahu in the sixth house brings more work and it can bring more stress. So use all of that energy to focus on your health and your well-being. That'll help you 18 months later when Rahu goes into your fifth house. Okay. Ketu in the 12th house for Libra ascendants means that you are going to be looking at your spirituality, understanding your sense of connection to yourself. 12th house is where you're alone, right? So you want to embrace that solitude. You want to find that voice when everything is quiet around you. And there's going to be a lot of growth in your subconscious and, very psychic, very intuitive. You will see all these thoughts come from within. You will see omens around you all the time. When I tell people this, they think that it's happening only now. There's omens around you at all times, but based on the transits, you're either open to it or not. So being a Libra ascendant, the nodes being in the 6-12 axis, you are open to these omens. So you will see numbers and patterns and things all around you. And this is going to really help you understand your subconscious growth. You want to really spiritually connect to yourself. This is what the focus is, your physical health and your mental well-being. That's what you're going to be focused on. There's going to be some foreign travels. 12th house rules foreign travels. And with 6th house Rahu, you will be looking at career gains too. 6th house does rule your day-to-day work. Okay. If you're a Scorpio ascendant, Rahu is in your 5th and Ketu is in your 11th house. So Rahu being in your 5th house means you're incredibly creative. You are looking at romance, love. You're connected to, that side of the emotions, the spectrum of emotions. And you may meet somebody that's very interesting. You may have an affair, or you may find this love relationship that is very fulfilling. There will be a lot of focus on your artistry, because that's the fifth house. It's artistic, plus Rahu is in Pisces, which kind of magnifies that. And you're going to be very creative. You will have new ideas, new things that you want to do. Fifth house Rahu is great for people who are looking to get pregnant and have kids, because, Rahu in the fifth house is one of the times when that area is heightened too. You really want to have children, because fifth house is children. And if you already have children, you're more connected with their lives. You're looking at what they should do. You're helping them all the time. Very connected with your children. Ketu in the 11th house means that that'll take you away from society, right? You're so focused on on the fifth house, it takes you away from the 11th house of friends and associations and parties and groups and social circles and all of that. But that's good, because it'll give you a break from that. And, when Ketu does go into the 10th house next time, 18 months from now, it'll give you this amazing awareness of how to navigate friendships, right? So Ketu in the 11th can bring that kind of detachment from that area, because you're trying to understand who to trust and who you cannot trust. Now, also remember, Ketu is past life, it's past events. So when it goes into the 11th house, people from your past who you have been friends with, or people from past lifetimes who you have been connected with, can come back into your lifetime, because that's what it brings. It brings past experiences back into the current life. Okay, so just remember that somebody from the past might pop up again into your life. Sagittarius ascendant or Sagittarius moon, Rahu is in the 4th house, Ketu is in the 10th house. So this is where your domestic life is becoming very important, right? You can expect some changes on the domestic front, because you are going to be very focused on your home, how you want to make things better, maybe decorate your home, maybe renovate it, maybe move. Sometimes Rahu can bring a move or a change in where you live. You're looking to strengthen your roots. You want to adapt to that family life. And Ketu in the 10th house is, it takes you away from your work. It doesn't mean that, you're going to lose your job or anything. It's just that mentally, psychologically, you're a little detached from the outcome of that job, right? It will bring new opportunities in the 10th house. Ketu in the 10th house can make you a little dissatisfied with where you are right now in your career, and you may want to look at new things that you want to do. So you are going to look at new career goals, new things that have been missing in your current job that you want to do in future. Those kind of thoughts will creep into your mind with Ketu in the 10th house. So be open to it. This is a natural process that is happening. And like I said, it is going to be the sense of, I want more in my career, right? So that's a good thing. But Rahu in the 4th house will keep you rooted. Your foundation will be very strong, okay? Capricorn ascendant or Capricorn moon, Rahu goes into the 3rd house and Ketu in the 9th. Now, 3rd house is communication and travels. And what is going to happen is with Rahu there, you are going to be very communicative. If you're by nature a very silent person, Rahu in the 3rd house can make you very vocal about what you feel. You will have a close relationship with siblings and close acquaintances and co-workers, because Rahu there will magnify that. You're going to meet new people. There will be a lot of short journeys during this next 18 months, because that's a 3rd house. You're going to learn new things. 3rd house is about learning, new kind of taking up new hobbies, wanting to learn new things. Ketu in the 9th house is about philosophy and spirituality. And you're going to seek higher wisdom, and you're going to go into more philosophical kind of things. And that's going to be your focus during the next 18 months with Ketu in the 9th house. If your father is still around, this is a time to connect with your father. Just watch your father's health, because Ketu is in the 9th house of father. And at the same time, with being in the 9th house, it can bring an ability to be closer, or sometimes there are events which will bring you closer to your father due to some reason. Now, if you're an Aquarius Lagna or Aquarius Moon, that puts Rahu in the 2nd house and Ketu in the 8th house. This means that the focus is going to be on personal wealth and finances, your assets, your gains. You are really looking and paying attention to your personal finances. You want to make more, you want to create more wealth, or you want to have more of a sense of self-worth. You feel like you're worth more, right? So then you start looking for better ways to make wealth. And Rahu gives you great opportunity in that area, in the 2nd house. Ketu in the 8th house means that there's going to be a problem with shared resources or money coming to you from other people. If you're supposed to get an inheritance and Ketu is in the 8th house, there may be some problems in getting that inheritance, because 8th house is money that comes to you from others. So there, you just have to kind of watch that. And there's going to be 8th house is transformational. So with Ketu in the 8th house, things from your past that have affected you is going to come back up again. It's going to bubble up in your subconscious when you're sleeping or when you're dreaming. Those thoughts are going to come up, and then you'll have to resolve them. Because remember, you may have pushed them aside at some point in your life thinking, I'll deal with that later. And now it comes back up again. When Ketu is going through the 8th house, it's a cleanup effort. It's going to want you to deal with those unresolved issues and resolve them and put them away so that you can really move forward in life, okay? But overall, with the 2nd and the 8th house being triggered, money, finances, and a little bit of, watch the lower end of those things. The lower meaning of those things is insecurity. So just watch that. Remember to kind of make it always the positive meaning, because everything has that lower meaning and the higher meaning. So remember to tap into the higher meaning of these things, because what you think is what you make happen in your life, okay? So try to always think positive. So yes, it can bring the insecurity, but then you need to think, how do you overcome that, right? How do you learn more about finances? How do you invest? This is a great opportunity to learn those new things so that you can always be secure, okay? So Pisces, if you're Pisces ascendant or Pisces moon, this means that Rahu is in the 1st house, Ketu is in the 7th house. Again, Rahu in the 1st house magnifies your sense of identity, who you are, who you want to be, your personal goals, your dreams, your aspirations, your self-discovery is heightened. There is always this, needs and desires, and if you always kind of, if you're the kind of person who puts yourself on the back burner, which being a Pisces ascendant, you probably are, you're always thinking of others, wanting to help others and putting everybody's needs before yours, then Rahu coming into Pisces next 18 months, you're going to be focusing on yourself, which I think you should, okay? Always remember to give yourself that priority, because, only then can you take care of others. Right? You can't always push yourself to the back burner. You have to give yourself priority. So the next 18 months is about finding your sense of identity, who you are, who you want to be. That automatically puts Ketu in the 7th house, which means that you are going to deal with a little bit of a detachment from your relationship. Nothing's going to happen to it where that's going to go away, but you are psychologically going to be like, you know what? I need to let that be. I'm going to focus on myself. And 7th house Ketu can bring relationships from the past back into the present. If you're not in a relationship right now, somebody that you knew in the past could come back to you in, as a relationship partner, or it can be a business collaboration that can happen with somebody that you knew in the past. Ketu can bring past life experiences and learnings, karma, into your 7th house of relationships. So if you're having arguments with your spouse in the next 18 months, remember, these are karmic patterns from the past life that have come in now for resolution, okay? So that's going to happen with Ketu in the 7th house. But overall, Ketu in the 7th house brings a sense of peace and calm in that area too, because even if there are problems and issues and challenges, you are having this Ketu kind of mentality where you're having a higher mindedness about it. Like, you know what? it's okay. I know that I need to learn this lesson for my spiritual growth. So I'm going to learn that lesson. So Ketu does bring a little bit of calm in that area. But yes, people from the past can come back into your lifetime. Okay. So those are the 12 signs and the overall meanings of the nodes moving there, which will be over the next 18 months. You're going to see this kind of trend in your life. If you have any further questions of what this means for you, you can always book a reading with me on my website, www.vedicliving.com. I will come back to you with my Nakshatra series and my election series in the next week. Until then, thank you so much.